Today we're going to be looking at the extract that we looked at last week. It's the extract based on the war in Iraq. And like I told you, this question that we were working on was a question based on language. That's your assessment objective 2. And you're always going to get a question like this in the exam. How is the writer use language to interest and engage the reader? Or how is the writer use language in this case to create tension in the extract? So let's have a look at the extract. I'm going to read the extract and then we're going to go in and analyze the extract to pick out the linguistic devices and analyze and explain the linguistic devices, and also to make sure that we've named our linguistic devices. So this is one excerpt right at the end of the extract. It's to give you a bit of context. It's an extract about the war in Iraq, and then a soldier is just about ready to use his sniper rifle to shoot to kill somebody who they have spotted who's carrying a grenade on the streets of Iraq. Okay, looks yellow, I told the chief, describing what I saw as he watched himself. It's yellow, the body. She's got a grenade, said the chief. That's a Chinese grenade. Shit, take a shot. But, shoot, get the grenade, the Marines. I hesitated. Someone was trying to get the Marines on the radio, but we could not reach them. They were coming down the street, heading toward the woman. Shoot, said the chief. I pushed my finger against the trigger. The bullet leapt out. I shot. The grenade dropped. I fired again as the grenade blew up. It was the first time I'd killed anyone while I was on a sniper rifle, and the first time in Iraq, and the only time I killed anyone other than a male combatant. It was my duty to shoot, and I don't regret it. The woman was already dead. I was just making sure she didn't take any Marines with her. So that's the extract. It's very short, as you can see, but it certainly has a lot of evidence that does build up the tension for the reader. So we're going to now look at the first part of the extract. And for ease of reference, I have color-coded the font, and we're going to be looking at all the font and all the writing in blue, because that's the evidence that I think does in fact create tension in this part of the extract, but you might find other pieces of evidence as well. So the first bit, which is the Chinese grenade, and I've highlighted it in yellow. Guys, this is an example of technical language. Now, in your nonfiction text, especially for your language paper 2, you will find technical knowledge, and that technical knowledge could be geographical knowledge, it could be military language, it could be scientific language, it could be medical language, it could be legal jargon, right? So look out for technical language. In this case, we can see it's definitely language associated with war, and it's military language. So why have I highlighted this part of the text as creating tension? Let's see why, right? The whole idea of the chief mentioning that it's a Chinese grenade already does build up the tension. It does create anxiety because his expertise and his knowledge and his experience comes through when he warns the soldier about this particular type of grenade. When he warns the soldier, obviously it's a grenade that's quite a dangerous grenade. It is quite a life and death situation. It's a life-threatening situation. And in that way, the use of the technical language, in this case the military language, actually contributes to building up the tension in this extract, and of course building up the suspense as well in this extract. So that's something that you can bear in mind as well when you're analyzing your text in your exam. Okay, now let's go on to the short sentences. If you look at the short sentences here, we have quite a few short sentences. We even have a one-word sentence, as you can see here. Quite a few one-word sentences. Now, one-word sentences definitely build up the tension. They can build up the tension in many different ways. Here, we can see the short sentences already start to pick up the pace. They quicken the pace of the text. They're building up the tension. They're building up the suspense. They creating panic as well. And then we have these sentences here, and these are the hyphenated sentences. We have but here, one word sentence with a hyphen. We can't really speak about the punctuation and isolate the punctuation as a language device, but we can speak about the hyphenated sentences here, remember. And then it's a linguistic device. And we can say here the hyphenated short sentences really reflect the soldier's state of mind, his emotional turmoil, his hesitation, his very fragmented thoughts and feelings, and his doubt as well. And that definitely picks up the pace of the text and again creates tension in the text. Next, we have the bit in green here, and that's your imperative verbs. The imperative verbs is something that you have been learning about from Key Stage 2. They are your command words. They are the words that give instructions. Okay, here the chief is speaking again. He says, shoot, get the grenade. These two words are imperative verbs, suggesting that he's giving instructions and is also giving us an indication it's a very urgent, serious situation. We can see the desperation that is reflected through these words when he gives that instruction to the Marine to shoot, to kill the person, and why it's really quite a decisive moment for the Marine is because it's a woman who's carrying the grenade, and it's something that he's not used to on the battlefield. It's something that he hasn't been doing, he hasn't done before in his life, killing a woman. Okay, so that definitely creates suspense and tension as well. Then let's go on to the next part of the extract, right? Before we do that, I've written a little sample paragraph here. I'll read it to you. Just to give you an idea of how you might write a paragraph in your exam. So through the use of the short sentences, I have indicated the linguistic devices, which are your subject terminology that you need to be writing about, and I've got them in red here. Looks yellow, shit, take a shot. The writer clearly describes the fear and the anxiety that the soldier feels, which starts to build up the tension in this part of the extract. Furthermore, the writer has created a semantic field of tension and panic through the short, hyphenated sentences. It's yellow at the body, but to illustrate that the fragmented thoughts and hesitation that the soldier experiences definitely also builds up the tension. This builds up the suspense and tension as it is a very decisive moment for the soldier, which puts him under a huge amount of pressure to act suddenly, to shoot. In addition, the use of the imperative verbs suggests the urgency and desperation of the situation, which quickens the pace of the text and builds up the tension even further. Now, if we look at the second part of the extract, I hesitated. I'm not going to read it because we've read it already, but I want to talk about the linguistic devices and show you the evidence in the text and the linguistic devices within that evidence that actually creates tension and builds up the suspense. Okay, at first we have these dynamic verbs. Now, I've been telling you dynamic verbs are verbs ending in ing. The other name for dynamic verbs are your continuous present participles. And these linguistic devices actually indicate some sort of continuous action and motion and movement, sometimes emotional struggle, physical struggle, showing that perhaps the character is in a situation that is quite a scary situation, a horrific situation, a life and death situation, a very challenging situation, perhaps, okay, like gasping, running. These are all dynamic verbs here. These definitely reinforce the anxiety and the frantic action that is taking place in this setting, right? It does definitely demonstrate the nervousness of the soldier. It quickens the pace and it does reinforce the tension as well. And then we have this is an exclamative because it is an exclamation, as you can see, because indicated by the exclamation mark. but it is also an imperative verb. It's an instruction that's given by the chief. Okay. And here, again, this does show the sudden panic that's experienced by the soldier, the surge of energy that he needs to be really also very decisive to shoot, to kill the woman. And there's that urgency that comes through as well. We have the repetition of these pronouns. I pushed, I fired. It was the first time that he had killed anyone, and I don't regret it. It was my duty, he says. And I was just making sure she didn't take any of the Marines with her. And you can see that through the pronouns here, we get a very personal experience being reflected and narrated through the first person narrative of the soldier. It allows us to empathize, to understand what he's going through, to understand how he feels, to understand his anxiety and his nervousness. And it does allow us to understand how his thought process was quite hesitant, quite doubtful. But at the same time, he was trying to justify himself by saying, it was my duty to shoot and I don't regret it. So there's a lot of conflicted emotions going on in his head, and that comes through in the personal pronouns that he uses. Then, guys, we have metaphoric language. The bullet leapt out. Okay, the grenade dropped. The bullet leapt out is an example of a metaphor as well as a personification. And this really demonstrates the speed, the velocity, the force with which the bullet had been released from the rifle, the sniper rifle. And again, that will build up the tension and create tension in this extract, or highlight or emphasize the tension. Then I'd like you to also pay attention to the plosives that are being used here. The b, the p, the t sounds. Okay, the b, the p, the d, and the t sounds that are used, which indicate they're really, really harsh sounds. They're really showing the aggression, they're showing the violence, they're showing the ruthlessness of the whole situation. And look out for plosive sounds. You might have plosive alliterations, for example. Look out for the plosive sounds because they do indicate something about the setting and the situation, which very, very often does create tension and build up the suspense in an extract. I certainly hope that you have found this lesson useful, guys. Look out for these linguistic devices in your extracts as well. And what I have here is a little paragraph, which I've written a sample paragraph. This is one of many sample paragraphs. You might write another paragraph on exactly the same excerpt, which might sound different, which might have other linguistic devices that you might analyze. But this is one example that I've written down, and I hope that you found it useful. Thank you, guys. I do hope that you found this lesson useful today, guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if there's any specific topic you would like help on, do leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.